Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS core plays for the Tour Championship. Got to break down the top end of the Draftkings pricing and bring you 3 players that I'll be using in my GPP lineups and that you might want to take a look at for a potential outright bet. And boy, oh boy, did our boy Viktor Hovland come through last week. Of course, he was a core play, somebody we bet outright and took in a majority of our lineups, and he came through for that backdoor victory. That was a ridiculous round, 28 on his final 9 holes, that I'll remember for quite some time and definitely helped us out in terms of ROI. One of the bigger outrights that we had on the card last week, so definitely gave us a little bit of green, and in fact is helping fund our trip to Eastlake Golf Club this week. So we'll be on grounds, we'll have boots on the ground action for all of you guys, and really stoked to be looking at some of the best golf of the entire year. But here in this video, going to focus on the top end of the board and some of the studs that I think have a better chance than not to go out there and have a big week. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing started with a look at our key stats of the week. It might sound like a bit of a broken record, but this track, Eastlake Golf Club, is a true ball striking test. It's all about hitting fairways and all about hitting greens, even more so than the rest of the tracks on tour, where that's, one of our key pillars every single week. But at Eastlake, literally the top 5, top 10 is almost directly correlated to tee to green stats. So shots gained approach, you're gonna have a lot of mid irons this week. So I'd say from 125 yards up to this 175 to 200 yard range would be the buckets to keep an eye on the most. In terms of off the tee, it is a driving accuracy and a driving distance type of golf course. You've got to be somebody that can hit it a long way, take advantage of a few of the scoreable holes, and of course keep yourself in play. Though it's only a 2.5 inch rough, Bermuda grass rough tends to be the most unpredictable that you have on tour. So despite not being 4 to 6 inches like you had at the BMW, it's probably going to play just as penal. In terms of your putting stats, you can look at Bermuda grass numbers. They're not quite as grainy at Eastlake as they are at most pure Bermuda grass tracks, so that's worth noting. That's why I threw in Eastlake Golf Club putting. Opportunities gained, birdies are better, are always important for fantasy related stats around the green on Bermuda grass. And then for comps, there's not a bunch that I like. This golf course, you've got zoysia fairways, you've got the ungrainy Bermuda grass, which is very rare, I have to say. You find it at a few golf courses down here in South Florida, but it requires just such care and precision when it comes to the golf course setup to remove a lot of that grain that you don't see that very often. So Quail Hollow Club, Sedgefield, Innisbrook are all Bermuda grass base kind of golf courses. Quail Hollow, extremely long, good ball striking test like you have this week. Sedgefield, it's a par 70, has a lot of the shoots off the tee, that tree lined Parkland style setup that you get this week. And then Innisbrook is a real similar ball striking test. The agronomy, very similar out there as well. You can use these 3 as comps, but really modeling this week, it's not how we're identifying our top plays, right? This golf course is a staple year in and year out. And the guys that are making the Tour Championship every single year, we have quite the sample size on around in Eastlake. And honestly, that is a whole lot more important for me on this sort of golf tournament than a lot of these ball striking stats, right? Like if you made it to the Tour Championship, you're playing pretty damn well. Your ball striking is most likely in order. It's the icing on cake, of course, but course history, and specifically at this event, I think is going to be extremely important this week. So when we hop over to the core plays, it shouldn't be a surprise that my first core play is going to be Rory McIlroy. And it's worth noting that the outright betting market this week is obviously a little bit different with the starting strokes. So my bet here on Rory McIlroy is including starting strokes. So he's actually somebody I bet at 3.5 to 1 to go out there and win this event. And really, I think that's decent value for somebody that's won at this golf course twice. So if event history is going to be important, right? Your winner last year is obviously going to model well. He tops 10 finished over there in 2020, won there in 2019, and pretty much every time he tees it up here, he's at least in contention or playing well enough, right? 2021 was the one down year where he did finish T14, but went out there and backed it up with a win just last time around. So if you're looking for course history, there's not going to be a better player on tour than Rory McIlroy. The ball striking stats of late have been otherworldly, gaining a stroke per round on approach, gaining off the tee, and very well balanced. You can see gaining across all 4 categories, though he's not gaining like 1.4 strokes per round. He leads the field in shots gained total, right? Because of that well-rounded approach. Worth noting that over the last 36 rounds, it's very similar, right? You can see Scotty passes him when it comes to the shots gained total, but not by a whole lot, right? 0.4 strokes, and Rory McIlroy a lot more consistent across the board. Though there was, probably a month, maybe month and a half slump for Rory McIlroy, where he missed the cut at the Players, right? Had a few stumbles towards that part of the season, right? Withdrew from the RBC Heritage, which got a whole lot of press. Ever since then, he's been just fine, right? He's been tinkering with putters. He's been changing things up. None of that has really derailed him from going out there and having a fantastic track record. So Rory's not only coming in with form, you can see 4th, 3rd, 6th. What did he finish at the Scottish? First place for there, Rory McIlroy? The guy is, that come from behind victory against Robert McIntyre. How could I have possibly forgotten that? The guy is just on an absolute roll. So the fact that he's 3.5 to 1 to win this event, only starting from 4 shots back, is mind-blowing to me, right? And I know giving Scotty Scheffler 4 strokes is a lot, but Rory McIlroy loves this golf course. In fact, he's come back from further deficits before to go out there and win this very event. So $13,000 for DFS, right? He's going to be real chalky, but we'll just have the ownership discussion right now. There's only 30 players in the field. That means your average ownership is going to be 20%. Last week, we had 50 players, right? So your average was 12.5% ownership. That's how that works. Actually, maybe it might be 12%. Either way, it's not very substantial. Yeah, I think it's 12%. The highest owned player last week was 22% owned Patrick Cantlay, right? So your highest owned player was 22%. I think your lowest owned player was 6% Seamus Power. Ownership pretty much didn't matter last week. So I know Rory, the price tag is going to kind of keep the ownership down a bit too, right? Scotty's ownership, right, is going to keep Rory down. Victor starting in 2nd place, right? He's going to keep Rory's ownership down. You're not going to get a prohibitively owned Rory McIlroy, right? He'll get some ownership, right? Because it's a 30-player field, but he's not going to be this mega chalk that you just can't possibly play. So I know in most slates, I try and find a more outside-the-box kind of option. For a lot of these plays, a lot of these bets, you don't have to do that this week. It's not one of those slates. You have to treat it a lot differently, whether it's for outright betting or for DFS. And from the starting strokes perspective, I think giving him, anything within 4 strokes of the lead, some may look at that as a negative, as, oh, Scotty's starting with a 4-shot lead. Rory still has 6 shots over a lot of the rest of the field. That's a huge positive from that angle, right? So I think a lot of people don't think about it from that way. Before we go into the last 2, I'll remind you guys, all of my bets, all of my spreadsheets that you see in these videos, all of my plays, modeling, etc., of course, you can check that out on the Patreon, right? All of the weighting that you see in my modeling is, of course, posted there too. So if you want to go ahead, use some of that for your own models, that's what I post all of that for. It's meant to be a great research sheet, resource that you can use out there, where you can look at the shots gained metrics. We've got course history, recent form on there, the reference to help you out with your decision-making process. Everything that I use on a week-to-week basis to make decisions can be yours out there on my Patreon page. So link is down below in the description. It is $10 a month. Of course, I'm going to be at East Lake this week, right? Going out there, doing a little bit of, reconnaissance, right? Walking the golf course, enjoying it and whatnot. And if you want my takes on all of that, make sure to check out the Patreon. Will be a ton of extra content behind the paywall this week. For our last 2 plays, it's worth noting that these are going to be different when it comes to the outright bet. So Xander and Tommy Fleetwood, I haven't bet outright yet, but I'm going to bet them on the non-starting strokes leaderboard, at least if we get a good number. The book that I have access to down here in Florida, about that, does not have these up yet, right, for Xander or Tommy Fleetwood. I'm assuming that we'll get decent value on these sort of players. Xander might be a little bit harder to come by when it comes to a good number, but at $10,500, he's somebody that I want to bet in that market because of his track record here. So if you take a look at his course history, it's just as good as Rory without a win. 4th, 5th, 2nd, and 7th. His worst finish is in 7th, and a lot of times, not every time, he's had a few times where he started with some good starting strokes. He's starting with a good amount this year, started, I believe, with 6 last year. But there's been a few years where he started with like 0, 1, or even just 2 starting strokes, and has gone out there and absolutely killed it. In fact, without the starting strokes, Xander's won this golf tournament 3 times. So you're talking about a player that clearly likes the course. His shots gained per round is #1 in this field, ahead of a Rory McIlroy per round. So $10,500. I think at that specific betting market is fantastic. Or even out here for DFS, right? There are guys around him that are starting in a similar starting stroke range, but Xander, I think, has legit top 5 upside or top 3 upside, even with the starting strokes. In a week like this where scoring isn't going to be crazy, you're not going to see 25 under par without strokes winning this golf tournament. It's not going to play nearly as easy as what you saw last year. Guys like Xander that have both placement and scoring upside are really going to be valuable for DFS, right? Those placement points are going to matter, right? If scoring is going to be harder to come by, and Xander brings us both of those options. You take a look at the shots gained, he's been killing it too, right? He's gaining a bunch of strokes on approach and putting, which I'm mostly looking for approach and off the tee, but the putting is a nice little boost there. You zoom out a little bit, the off the tee is a little better for Xander Schauffele, still doing the thing with the putting and the approach play. But yeah, at this golf course specifically, he's been really good off the tee. He's also been really good at Quill Hollow off the tee, which is one of the comp courses that I'm looking at here. So hopefully he can dial into that, try and, rely on some of those old feels that have gone also well for him, and cash us out. And in terms of outright number, like without starting strokes, I don't even know what a good number would be. Probably like 15, 20 to 1. I mean, that's probably pushing it. You're probably going to get like 15 to 1 on his Xander, I would imagine. I'd probably bet that. Next, we've got Tommy Fleetwood at $8,800. He's somebody that I really think fits this golf course, this mold well, right? Ball striking form. Tommy Fleetwood's your guy, right? Last 12 rounds, they haven't even been good for Tommy Fleetwood. Is still doing his thing pretty much across the board. You go to the last 36 rounds, you get a better idea of really the form we're looking at, where he's gaining a little bit more significantly across all 4 categories. I know he had a little bit of a down week last week. I had some exposure there, of course, as one of our core plays. Tommy Fleetwood won, right? We had Cam Young and Fleetwood. Fleetwood was probably the most disappointing of the bunch, and he actually was what, -4 after the first 3 rounds. He wasn't all that far off from like a top 5, and he just had a horrible Sunday for us. So I think a lot of people will look at that finish, right, and look at it more negatively than they probably should at the top 25 in the 50-player field. He was playing a whole lot better than that for most of the golf tournament. The week before that, T3 nearly won, T10, T6 finishes. So it's just funny how quickly people forget about Tommy Ladd and some of his accomplishments. And at a golf course that's similar to Innisbrook, right? It's one of our comp courses that we're looking at here. This golf course he nearly won at this year, right? That he's contended at multiple times in the past. So I like Tommy Ladd at this sort of track that essentially emphasizes that off the tee play. And kind of like Xander, well, the event history here, he doesn't have much, but it's been good, right? T16, T11 finishes, not starting with pretty much any starting strokes. Back there in his first ever 2 starts. He hasn't played here the last 3 years, which I think if he had, he'd probably finish top 5 most of those years. Like this year with, the starting strokes, he's like towards the middle of the board. I think that'll help him out a little bit. These finishes, I think, are going to get even better at East Lake as the years go on. Tommy Ladd's a better golfer than he was 3-4 years ago. And like I said, I'm just hyped about the course fit angle here. So with Tommy Ladd, I'm probably hoping to get like maybe 30 to 1 odds. Maybe that's asking for too much. Maybe like 25 to 1 odds on him to win without the starting strokes. But I like the fact that he has to be aggressive, kind of like Xander. Right? He's not starting up there at like -8. So he's going to have to go out there and go low to win this golf tournament. Same thing with Tommy Ladd, right? He's going to have to go out there, probably shoot like 15 to 20 under par to go out there and, top 3 or win this golf tournament. And I like that when we're betting him from that kind of market. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got for the core plays this week. I appreciate all your support here. Smash that like button on your way out of here. And also, let me know in the comments who you've got winning this golf tournament. For me, I'm going to say without starting strokes, I'm going to go with Xander Schauffele. He just loves the track. It's like the Xander Schauffele Open every time we get here. But let me know your winner without starting strokes in the comments. And let's get ready to have ourselves a week. I can't wait to get over there to Atlanta, be walking those grounds once again, and to give you guys all that insight from the track. So look forward to all of that content. We'll have value plays dropping, fades and sleepers. Of course, our weekly live stream still will be a thing, just a bit from Atlanta, right? We'll be going live from the Airbnb out there and bringing you guys all the regular info. So looking forward to it. Again, guys, I'll see you guys for all that content throughout the week. Let's have ourselves a golf tournament.